Eye on inflation. New tonight on Our News Live at 7. The central bank chief says the cost of power impacting inflationary levels. The governor says high electricity rates will mean a slower decline. This as Atlantis says it's expecting record-breaking numbers this season. An executive breaks down the figures as the tourism industry rebound continues. But first, a hit and run turns deadly as a woman is killed while walking in the inner city. Then, in Our News at 7:30, local police uncover an alleged murder plot leading to the arrest of an American woman and two others believed to be involved. Our News Live at 7 starts right now. Welcome to Our News Live at 7. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Kendino Knowles. We've got news on the economy tonight as we're learning inflation is falling despite the cost of power going up. The central bank governor paints a picture of our current situation in just a moment. But now to this. Two separate hit-and-run accidents under investigation tonight. Police say one of them was deadly. We are told a woman was walking on the southern side of Wolf Road near Palm Beach Street around 12:20 this morning when she was struck by a red Honda vehicle traveling west along Wolf Road. Police say the pedestrian died on the scene. About an hour later, or before that actually, around 11 o'clock Sunday night, police say a man was attempting to cross East Street in the area of Andros Avenue when he was struck by a car that fled the scene. EMS took the victim to hospital where police tell us he's listed in critical condition. Police are appealing to anyone, if you have any information, to contact them at 911-919 or Crime Stoppers at 328-TIPS. Meanwhile, police have taken a suspect into custody for the shocking sexual assault of a 9-year-old girl. Police say intelligence led Drug Enforcement Unit officers to arrest the 42-year-old Somerset Estate resident at his home around 9:45 last night. You may recall police reports of a girl who was playing with friends outside her home around 6 p.m. on Saturday when a man driving a white Nissan Skyline asked her to get inside his vehicle. They say the child complied and was taken to an unknown location where she was reportedly threatened and sexually assaulted. The girl was found a short time later near her home. Investigations are said to be ongoing. And now to the magistrate's court, where two men have been charged following the July 24th seizure of $1.2 million worth of cocaine. Royal Bahamas Defense Force officers reportedly found 61 kilos of cocaine after they stopped and searched a vessel captained by Carlos Delgado in Prince George Wharf. Police arrested 34-year-old Jamal Bain of Bamboo Town following further investigations. Delgado and Bain face charges of drug possession, including intent to supply, conspiracy to possess, and conspiracy to export drugs in their arraignment before Acting Chief Magistrate Roberto Reckley. Bain was granted $50,000 bail and is expected to wear an electronic monitoring device. Delgado will learn whether he'll be freed on bail on Tuesday once the court is able to confirm his immigration status. Until then, he's been remanded to the Department of Corrections. Both men are expected to be tried on November 7th and 8th. And now to news on the economy as it bounces back from the pandemic-induced slump. Central Bank of the Bahamas now predicting inflation will see a slow decline, which the governor says is largely due to the high cost of electricity. Berthany McDermott tells us despite this, the economic outlook for 2024 looks favorable.
A decline in inflation is slow moving when compared to other parts of the world, according to Central Bank Governor John Roll, who attributed the delay to one main factor.
On a 12-month basis, we did begin to see some reduction. However, the point that we stress for the Bahamas is that the timing is delayed partly because the adjustment that we are seeing, say, in the electricity and related costs are much later than those adjustments took place in other countries.
In recent weeks, Bahamians have been taking to social media complaining about what they say seem to be rapidly increasing power bills. It comes months after the government announced a price hike at BPL, with the Prime Minister revealing the fuel charge will nearly double for some consumers.
To some extent, we are going to have to experience the full amount of whatever adjustment and catch-up is likely to happen in the energy costs before we see the inflation moderation start to look a lot more like what's happening abroad.
Still, the central bank governor says the peak rate of inflation was still below the peak rates in the U.S. As for the economic outlook, Roll says growth will be moderate in 2024 as inflation will subside.
The economy's expansion would also stimulate more employment, scope for increased labor force participation, and improve conditions for bank lending.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
All right, we are halfway through summer and hotels around the country continue to see healthy numbers as the industry continues to rebound post the coronavirus pandemic. Now with fall approaching, Vice President for Government Affairs and Special Projects at Atlantis, Vaughn Roberts, says the hotel is expecting record-breaking numbers for the upcoming season.
The fall continues to look very strong for us as well. In fact, we're much more certain now about how our year is going to look. And we think it's going to be a strong year, a record year for Atlantis. So we're very, very excited about the business. We do a lot of programming in the fall with like Battle for Atlantis, and we have a cheerleading competition and a bunch of things that bring a lot of groups to the resort. And then we obviously have the U.S. holidays of Thanksgiving and then the week of Christmas to New Year's, which is always like a sellout for the Bahamas. So we're very excited.
Roberts also touting summer bookings at the hotel.
It's really been a very strong summer for us at Atlantis. I mean, even this week we're quite busy. And so with a lot of families enjoy bringing their kids down for summer vacation, it's been really strong. Occupancy has been like 90% plus. Like this week, I tried to book a room for a friend and it's like sold out. So it's like been in the 90s, very strong occupancy at Atlantis.
All right, we've got much more to get to tonight, including work in progress. We're talking about potholes and how you can actually get compensation for repairs. We'll walk you through that process in just a moment. But for now, it's time for your first look at temperatures. Meteorologist Greg Thompson, he's in the Weather Center. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Kendino, and happy Monday evening, everybody. We started off with some showers early today across the capital, portions of our northwest and central Bahamas. Comfortable right now with after that rain. It's 85 degrees outside our studios, partly cloudy skies. We still have some showers lurking nearby. Your winds out of the southeast at 7 miles per hour, and your field slight temperature is at 88. Temperatures around the islands tonight right now, it's 85 in Freeport, Marsh Harbor, Abaco, as well as in Nicholstown, Andros. Alice and Bimini, you guys are 87, 86 in Great Harbor Key, as well as in Governor's Harbor. Central Bahamas, 86 is popping up in Kemps Bay, Arthurstown, Cat Island, Georgetown, Exuma, and in Deadman's Key, Long Island, Coopertown, San Salvador. You are warmer at 87, and into the southeast Bahamas, more 86s in Duncantown, Ragged Island, Colonel Hill, Cricket Island, Delectable Bay. Pick up 87s in Abrahams Bay, Matthewtown, Inagua, and our neighbors to the southeast, Turks and Caicos Islands. You are also 87 at this hour. Satellite and radar composite, upper level low. I don't know if you could see this little bit of a spin right there just across the central Bahamas. That's an mid to upper level low. That's triggering some showers and some thunderstorms across portions of the northwest and into the central Bahamas. As I mentioned, we had some showers earlier today. Grand Bahama getting in on some action. Bimini, Andros, portions of Abaco here in the capital earlier today as well. We had some real strong thunderstorms that prompted some severe thunderstorm warnings and across North Eleuthera. That upper level low will keep us a little unsettled over the next 24 hours before it exits. So we're looking for some more showers in the forecast. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us. Look at your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, a Caribbean Youth Drug Prevention Forum discusses the issue of drug abuse among children. This as the health minister says doctors must be careful when prescribing opioids. Plus, has a pothole caused damage to your car recently? We'll find out the steps you can take to get compensation for repairs in tonight's Work in Progress segment when Our News returns. 13 countries across the English-speaking Caribbean gathering in Nassau this week for the second Caribbean Youth Forum on Drug Use Prevention. Marlena Leonard has more on this.
The second Caribbean Youth Forum on Drug Use Prevention is a collaborative effort between the U.S. Embassy, the Organization of American States, and the Bahamas National Drug Council, and it has a unique goal in mind. Phyllis Barron, OAS representative in the Bahamas.
We're hoping that from that they will go back home as prevention influencers, and we're also hoping that the initiative that they have started here in the Bahamas, they will return home and implement. And for this, we are also offering an award of $1,000 to the most relevant initiative that came up.
The United States saw over 110,000 overdose deaths in 2022. And while the opioid epidemic hasn't hit the Caribbean like our northern neighbors yet, Health Minister Dr. Darville says the key is prevention.
We were doing a lot of great work on the ground to begin to talk about prevention, but dealing strictly with drug addiction. And I could remember, Dr. Kawaluki, that I sent hundreds of individuals from Grand Bahama to our psychiatric hospital for drug rehabilitation, and my success rate was less than 1%. This is important, and this is the key for this entire conference, prevention.
Phil Lander is the president of the National Youth Council in Dominica. It took him 5 flights to get to the forum. He tells us why this forum was so important to attend.
Demand reduction is something that's very important to me because back home I'm also a nurse, and I see the actual negative effects of how drugs can affect young people. And as a result, it's very important to us back home that we start off processes and implement necessary programs that are geared at mitigating this issue of drug abuse, drug misuse, that is.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
All right, and still speaking about drugs, the health minister is saying that doctors must be careful when prescribing opioids. While the Bahamas isn't experiencing the opioid epidemic the United States has been battling for the last decade, Darville says many people are first introduced to these drugs by a licensed physician.
Well, there's always a concern with our Dangerous Drug Act and the use of opioids. Opioids is a common pain relief medication prescribed by physicians. It's used for chronic pain. It's used in the end stages of cancer and other end-stage diseases. But yes, most individuals who are addicted to opioids first experience the drug by a licensed physician.
Darville says, as a result, they're working closely with physicians to make sure opioids are not overprescribed, which some studies say contributed to the issues in the United States.
It is our responsibility to educate our physicians, to be able to monitor closely how opioids are prescribed in the country. And that is something that is done from our pharmacology department at the ministry and the office of the CMO.
All right, 2 weeks ago, we told you that you might be able to receive compensation for vehicular damage due to bad roads and potholes in particular here in New Providence, but many of you viewers wanted to know more about how the process actually works. Well, our Jamila Mizik, she has the details in tonight's Work in Progress segment.
Vehicle was damaged due to dropping into a pothole, you may be eligible for compensation from the Ministry of Works and Utilities. But in order to begin the process, you are required to submit a claim form, and you'll be asked to include some important details like your name, address, telephone contact, and email address. You'll also be required to attach copies of the following documents: your driver's license, national insurance card, banking information, as well as a copy of your insurance policy. Then comes your personal account of the incident, accompanied by evidence, whether photographs or video. And if applicable, you can also include a witness statement and/or police report. 3 quotations for the damage are also required. The ministry notes that consideration for an ex gratia payment and/or assistance relative to legitimate damages to vehicles allegedly as a result of potholes and other apparent adverse road conditions may be considered on on a case-by-case basis. There is no guarantee that an offer will be made at all. Each claim will be investigated by the relevant road engineers, and where appropriate, technicians of the transport unit of the ministry may also be required to inspect the vehicle and make an assessment. Claims may also be reviewed by the ministry's legal unit. The ministry notes that where deemed appropriate, an offer for assistance may be made. In this case, the claimant will also be required to complete a Treasury vendor identification application and execute a deed of release. Claim forms can be obtained from the security desk at the ministry on JFK Drive. In the meantime, the ministry is cautioning motorists to be extremely vigilant and reduce their speed when driving. Reporting for Work in Progress for Our News, I'm Jamila Missick.
When our news comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as 54 people are killed at a political gathering following an explosion in Pakistan. Plus, dramatic video of a plane somersaulting after crashing into sea on a New Hampshire beach. And later, an American nurse and daughter kidnapped in Haiti. The details when our news returns. This is our news. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. An eyewitness told BBC a suicide bomber targeted a political rally in Pakistan, killing at least 45 people. The bombing group, called Islamic State Khorasan, said the attack was part of an ongoing war against democracy, targeting a party that's a part of the government coalition.
I don't know what the cause was, but there was a sudden blast, and within moments, dozens of people were lying dead and injured on the ground.
His name is Sharif Ullah, and he is 11 years old. I'm so worried about his health, and I'm praying he'll get well.
When we reached the convention and heard speeches being delivered from the stage, we were standing to welcome our leaders when suddenly a blast occurred, and then we were not aware of ourselves.
Meanwhile, thousands of coup backers in Niger marched through the streets of the capital, denouncing France, waving Russian flags, and setting a door at the French embassy ablaze on Sunday. Demonstrators are openly resentful of France, and Russia is being seen by some as a powerful alternative. French President Emmanuel Macron said Sunday that attacks on France and its interests would not be tolerated, and anyone who attacks French citizens will see an immediate response. This dramatic video now showing the Piper PA-18 plane hitting the water at a New Hampshire beach resort 30 yards from the shore. Well, this eyewitness footage shows the plane crashing into the water before flipping over on the popular beach on Saturday. The Hampton Fire Department said lifeguards helped the pilot from the water, but they said hospital treatment was not needed. Now to the region, as an American nurse and her daughter, who were kidnapped in Haiti on July 27th, remain missing. This as the State Department issued orders for U.S. officials and their families to leave the country amid worsening clashes between gangs and police. The Christian humanitarian organization El Roi Haiti confirmed the 31-year-old American nurse Alex Dorsanville and her daughter were kidnapped from the site of the non-governmental organization. On the day of Dorsanville's kidnapping, the U.S. State Department issued a Level 4 do not travel advisory on Haiti due to kidnapping, crime, civil unrest, and poor health care infrastructure. This as Haiti has now welcomed Kenya's offer to lead a multinational force to restore order. Haiti Foreign Minister Jean-Victor Genius said he appreciated the expression of African solidarity. Earlier, Kenyan Foreign Minister Alfred Mutua said a quick fix to Haiti's problem would not be possible, but the mission would aim to stabilize the situation and train a proper Haitian police force. Mutua said the people of Haiti had suffered enough, and Kenya felt a responsibility to help its brothers and sisters in the African diaspora. Still to come in our news, today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was July 31st. Then in our news at 7:30, baby Bella's mom gets a 3-year jail sentence. Plus, fast food wars. Atlanta says the newly opened Shake Shack is open for guests and locals after claims of discrimination. A hotel executive speaks when our news returns. Welcome back to our news. It's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was July 31st. Take a look. On this day in Bahamian history in 1973, John Warburton Paul, who was the last governor and first Governor General of the Bahamas, stepped down from office. Sir John was a British colonial administrator and civil servant who served in many capacities. On May 14, 1972, he became governor of the Bahamas, and upon its independence on July 10, 1973, became the first Governor General. He was succeeded by the Honorable Sir Milo Butler, who was the first Bahamian Governor General. Then in 2018, former Member of Parliament for South Beach, Fenton Nemore, was remembered in a memorial service at the Free National Movement headquarters on Mackey Street. Nemore passed away on July 23rd that year after battling stage 3 colon cancer.
I can say, however, that Fenton, from the day he and the CDR members that joined the Free National Movement, Fenton never wavered, despite how he was treated. He remained committed to the cause, He wanted to assist in building our nation and always felt that he had something to offer. He was prepared at all costs to do so. He had an insatiable desire for public service. He loved Exuma, and he wanted the opportunity to represent that island that he held so near and dear to him.
He served as Minister of State for the Environment from 2008 to 2012. And finally, in 2020, Hurricane Isaias passed over the Bahamas as a Category 1 hurricane that brought torrential downpours and extreme winds. The storm came as the Bahamas was still reeling from Hurricane Dorian the year before. Fortunately, the destruction was minimal, only knocking over loose trees and causing mild damage to some homes. All right, and condolences continue to pour in for former Police Commissioner Paul Farquharson. In a video shared with the media recently, Police Commissioner Clayton Fernandez shared some of his fondest memories with one of his former bosses.
I was Inspector of Police many years ago, in charge of the armed robbery squad at the Criminal Investigation Department. I was instructed by Mr. Farquharson to meet him in the eastern area where he visited a number of residents. There was a trend going on in the eastern area where homeowners were being targeted and robbed. On arrival, I met with Mr. Farquharson and a number of victims at that time. And Mr. Farquharson introduced me to them. And he said, "This is Mr. Fernandez, Inspector of Police. I'm not the professional. I brought the professional so that he could speak to you and update you with respect to your matter." Mr. Farquharson was one who pushed you, identify talent, and push you in the forefront.
Now, the late retired Police Commissioner Farquharson died last Monday and served as chief of the police force from 2001 to 2008. He's expected to be laid out in the Paul Farquharson Conference Center at the police headquarters of the Royal Bahamas Police Force on East Street.
In October of last year, I received the Queen's Medal. Mr. Farquharson was responsible for escorting me to receive the medal from His Excellency Cornelius Smith. It was a pleasure to walk the aisle with Mr. Farquharson in recognition of his service to the organization and by extension the country. Mr. Farquharson will be laid out in the building that he was instrumental in building, the state-of-the-art Paul Farquharson Conference Center.
All right, and our condolences again to the entire Farquharson family. To watch that story again, and for all of today's top stories, visit ournews.bs. It's going to do it for us in News at 7. Joining us now is Italia Hall. She's got the latest headlines. Italia?
Ken, happy Monday. Did you make it to Gombe on the weekend? I know we were supposed to make it a date.
I know.
I'm sorry.
I know, but did you make it? If you made it, I made it.
No, I did not make it. So hopefully this weekend we could try to keep our promise, right?
Right.
All right. Thanks so much, Ken. Well, baby Bella's mom gets a 3-year jail sentence and a fast food chain war. Here are your latest headlines. Murder for hire plot goes wrong. First tonight on Our News Live at 7:30. Hear how an American woman is behind bars tonight after allegedly plotting to kill her husband. Also, baby Bella's mother had her day in court and was officially sentenced. Plus, a generator at Golden Gates Plaza is extensively damaged following a fire. And later, how are you protecting your garden this summer? An expert tells you how.
If you want to continue to try to grow things, only morning sun. So if you had mint, tomatoes, basil, things like that.
Our News Live at 7:30 starts in a moment. Are you?
Doctors Hospital has reimagined primary care. We have invested to improve our health system, ensuring that accessible, affordable, world-class clinical care is closer to you. Your relationship with a primary care provider shapes the foundation of your overall health. Our new, modern primary care facilities are where critical diagnosis and true personalized treatment begin. With locations across New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Exuma, we invite you to experience the Doctors Hospital difference. Book your next appointment at clinics.doctorshos.com.
If new, Heineken Silver was a riveting Viking saga.
Last the 12th, your family tortured my first wife and stole my second favorite goat. Now you want to marry my daughter. Okay.
All the taste, no bitter endings. Smooth, fresh, silver.
Welcome to our news and thank you for joining us. I'm Natalia Hall. Topping news tonight, well, an American woman and two Bahamians capturing international headlines after police say they were involved in a murder-for-hire plot. Sources say police uncovered the alleged plot while investigating a break-in at a restaurant and bar in Abaco. That's when officers found WhatsApp messages regarding the plot while searching a suspect's phone. 36-year-old Lindsay Shirley Shiver of South Georgia, 29-year-old Ferran Newbold Jr. of George Albury Boulevard, Abaco, and 28-year-old Terrence Adrian Bethel were arraigned in the magistrate court on murder conspiracy charges on Friday. The suspects appeared before acting chief magistrate Roberto Rackley and were not required to enter a plea. They were all remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections. The trio will return to court on October 5th to receive voluntary bill of indictment papers. Now, Shiver's social media profile shows recent images of her husband and family. Her husband, Richard Shiver, is a former Auburn University football player and is now an executive of an insurance company. Now, we will continue to follow this story. Well, a mother whose 4-year-old daughter was murdered by her live-in boyfriend has been jailed for 3 years. Estonia Walker pleaded guilty to child cruelty and exposing Deonia Bella Walker to grievous harm on January 16, 2023, and was remanded to prison pending sentencing. The preschooler was murdered on November 5, 2021 by Darian Smith while her mother was at work. He pleaded guilty to her murder and was sentenced to 25 years as a part of a plea deal. Walker was sentenced to 3 years for child cruelty and 2 years for exposing a child to grievous harm when she appeared before Justice Renee McKay. The sentences will be served at the same time. Walker will also receive credit for the time she spent on remand. Prosecutors had sought a jail term of 5 years imprisonment, while public defender Dorsey McPhee recommended an absolute discharge. While awaiting sentencing, Walker gave birth to her third child. Police are investigating what led to a fire that destroyed a generator at the rear of the Golden Gate Shopping Plaza on Sunday. It was around 9:30 p.m. when fire services officers responded to a fire at the Golden Gate Shopping Plaza, where they met a generator at the back of a business engulfed in flames. The fire was extinguished within a short period of time. However, extensive damage were noted to the generator. There were no injuries reported or structural damage to the building. Central Bank Governor John Rule dismissing fears of a possible recession. It comes after experts in the United States predicted a recession was coming. However, those concerns have since been squashed.
As the outlook is more towards a softer landing in the United States and other tourism markets, that's a good sign for the Bahamas because it means that those countries are standing a better chance of getting inflation under control without causing the economies to contract.
The central bank governor says the cost of vacationing in the Bahamas and electricity in the country plays a major role in the impact of the product. However, he says tourism gains during the first 6 months of 2023 were still driven by significant pent-up demand.
The industry benefited from appreciated stopover pricing, both within hotels and vacation rental properties. Based on comparisons against the pre-pandemic highs and the best seasonal performance before Hurricane Dorian, sea arrivals, which largely represent cruise visitors, have exceeded the pre-pandemic highs by an average of 40% since December 2022.
All right, well, scientists say a vital system of ocean currents could collapse within a few decades if the world continues to pump out planet-heating pollution. A new study published Tuesday found the collapse could come as early as 2025. Some of the most vulnerable regions are small island states that contribute the least to global warming, like the Bahamas, where the impacts of climate change are already evident with eroding coastlines and record-setting storms such as Hurricane Dorian. Now, Charles Hamilton, a climate change advisor in the Office of the Prime Minister, says Caribbean leaders agreed they would not return to the UN's climate change conference unless tangible steps are taken.
We know that historically, countries like the Bahamas have not contributed much to global greenhouse gases, but we're at the front lines of experiencing climate change. And just like those folks who live along the coast in Florida, and yes, they may be more affluent, they're also being impacted by climate change.
Now, the report actually highlights the need for immediate and concerted efforts to combat climate change. What makes the threat of this predicted collapse more sobering is the potential disruption to agriculture in regions such as India, South America, and West Africa, jeopardizing the livelihoods of billions of people, especially those in countries dependent on food imports.
We will not leave COP27 without a loss and damage fund, and we will not return if we don't see that happen. Because we know that it's something that we can't absorb by ourselves. And so I think it's about trying to level the playing field. And for us, that's just, the canary in the coal mine, seeing what's happening in Florida. And we don't want to see that happening here in our country. And so that's why we're advocating so hard. That's why we're working the way we're doing.
All right, and after a weekend filled with rain, temperatures are still heating up around the islands. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with a first look at weather. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Natalia, and welcome everybody for a quick check on conditions outside our studios and around the islands. It's 85 degrees outside our studios right now under partly cloudy skies. We call it humid. We had a couple of earlier showers. Some of those showers are still lurking. Southeast winds at 7 miles per hour, and your field strike temperature is at 89. Satellite and radar composite, upper level low spinning across the central Bahamas, destabilizing our atmosphere, so some showers and isolated thunderstorms across the northwest Bahamas. Most of the activity is actually out in the open Atlantic, but we will continue to see 1 or 2 more showers through tonight and into tomorrow before this low exits the area. That's your first quick check on weather conditions around the island. Stick with us. A look at your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, Atlantis still against the idea of a Wendy's restaurant on Paradise Island. This as the resort opens a fast food chain restaurant on its property, also confronting the issue of drug use head on. A Caribbean youth organization hosts a prevention forum. Also, protecting your garden during the summer. An expert shares some tips and tricks for you to preserve your plants from these scorching hot temperatures. When our news returns, stay with us. A top Atlantis executive is responding to critics over its new restaurant that opened last week. This comes as Atlantis has been vocal on its opposition to the opening of a Wendy's restaurant on Paradise Island. Our Joshua Williams reports.
Fast food and Atlantis have been two hot topics in recent weeks. More recently, the popular restaurant chain Shake Shack opened its doors at the resort. Locals are only allowed to eat there after 4 p.m. It sparked concerns across social media, with some calling the rule discriminatory. Vice President for Government Affairs and Special Projects at Atlantis, Vaughn Roberts, says Shake Shack is open to all hotel guests, both local and international.
And that's actually in Aquaventure, so like during the day, it's resort guests who go to Aquaventure and people who buy day passes. And often Bahamians are in those day passes. I had my family staying over the weekend and they were able to go. So it's just that since it's in Aquaventure, during the day it's closed for, it's reserved for lunch and dinner, breakfast and lunch for resort guests and day pass, persons holding day passes.
Roberts says non-hotel guests can visit after a certain time.
At 4 o'clock, it's open to anybody. It's like a ticketed area to go into the water park, and it's in the water park. So once the cruise ship passengers leave for the day, then we're able to kind of just have it open to everybody. And the water park obviously closes as well, but we open until 11 p.m. at night.
This opening follows the resort's firm opposition to the opening of a Wendy's restaurant. Roberts says their stance has not changed.
We opposed, through the town planning process, fast food on PI in that particular location. That our position has not changed.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Joshua Williams.
Thanks, Joshua. The second Caribbean Youth Forum on Drug Use Prevention is underway this week. The forum has attracted youth leaders from 13 Caribbean countries to talk about drug use prevention in the region. Bahamas National Drug Council Director Dr. Novia Carter-Lukey describes some of the ongoing initiatives here in the Bahamas.
And even in terms of the use of alcohol by underage minors. And so what we've done is we've developed a lot of programs in our communities and in our schools to meet those needs. So we've developed programs that deal with not only just saying no to drugs, but we strengthen skills against violence prevention. We've done some work with bullying prevention, and we've done a lot of work with anger and stress management. And so it's our hope that over the next few years, we're going to reap the benefits of ensuring that more children receive the skills necessary, not only to resist drugs, but also to make some positive, healthy life choices.
And when it comes to prescription drug abuse, most teens say they got those drugs from friends and family, either by sharing, buying, or even stealing from their parents' medicine cabinet. Dr. Carter-Lukey says they're looking to address that issue in campaigns as well.
What kind of initiatives or maybe like PSAs, campaigns are we trying to do to make sure that parents maybe throw out those kinds of prescriptions after they don't need them anymore?
That's one of the next steps that we intend to take over the next 6 months, is developing a lot of PSAs to make sure that parents and the community is aware of that danger.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual fund in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
Bahamas basketball makes a big push to make its first ever Olympics, passes hooped against politicians, and one of our most decorated swimmers calls it quit. Stay with us, our sports is coming up next.
Protecting your plants this summer, what the owner of a local organic farm in Grand Bahama says is key when Our News returns. Stay with us.
Today's sports update is sponsored by Michelob Ultra, distributed in the Bahamas by Jimmy's Wines and Spirits.
This is our news. Welcome back. Pastors played the politicians at the Peace on the Streets tournament. Plus, John Cole Jones and the Liberty win the first game of their doubleheader. Here's Tej Adderley with a check on sports. Tej?
Thanks, Italia. Hello, good evening. I'm Tej Adderley here for another week of sports. The Bahamas Basketball Federation announced what may be the best national team roster in our nation's history. Team Bahamas strongest push it's ever made for a spot in the 2024 Olympics. The Bahamas Basketball Federation announced that NBA players DeAndre Ayton, Buddy Hield, and Kai Jones will join the Bahamas team that already has seasoned overseas professionals in Keno Burrows, Dominic Bridgewater, and Dan Radnolds, Division I talent in Sammy Hunter and Franco Miller, and a number of national team veterans like Kadeem Colby and Michael Thompson. The team will play in the 2023 FIBA Olympic pre-qualifier in a few weeks in Argentina.
32-29 was the final overtime score as the Pastors pulled out a second straight victory over the politicians. The game stayed close from the start, with the politicians entering the half with a 15-14 lead. At the end of the fourth, it would be Central and South Eleuthera MP Clay Sweeting hitting a jumper that leveled the game at 26-all at the end of regulation. But once overtime began, the Pastors were simply too much to handle, with Dr. Carlos Reed hitting two back-to-back three-pointers, which sealed the win. The final score, 32-29. Dr. Carlos Reed was the top scorer with 13 points.
It's always good, especially when you play against people who get hard mode. There's always good to silence the lamb.
He also spoke about those two final three-pointers that he hit to seal the win.
Oh, that's what I live for. You know, I'm going to be 62 in the next couple of weeks, and I just thank God that God give me the strength, the vigor to be out there and play with some of these young fellas. I just feel good. I feel better to win.
Prime Minister Philip Davis served as the head coach for the politicians.
It's fun to playing game, and I'm so proud of my parliamentarian. As you can see, how what a far cry it was from our last year. It was very competitive. It was a very fun, real game. It went to the wire, and of course, we went in overtime. Right, we shot that was my facing and tied up in the closing second of the game, which was also an exhilarating event for us. But we'll be back.
Reporting for our sports, I'm Sasha Lightbourne.
That'll do it for sports today. I'm Tej Adderley.
Still ahead on our news tonight, an expert warning gardeners to stay away from the heat this summer as dehydration and heat exhaustion are lurking. We'll tell you all about it. And light showers around the capital today, but temperatures are still scorching hot. Greg is back with your weekly planner and extended weather forecast when our news returns.
Welcome back to our news. While we have experienced some rain over the past week, temperatures are still not letting up, as July has been one of the hottest months on record. For those plant and vegetable lovers looking to protect their crops this summer, the owner of a local organic farm is sharing some tips. Let's take a look.
We don't work in the afternoon. We only work from 8 till 11 in the morning, and then if need be again in the evening after 7.
That's the first word of advice to gardeners this summer as they try to protect their plants and crops from the summer heat. Owner of Local Organics Limited, Tiffany Dennison, says you don't want to be faced with heat exhaustion or dehydration.
I mean, even at 8 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning when I'm with the chickens, you're already pouring sweat. You're losing electrolytes. You're losing liquid. And as much water as you can drink, you can't put it all back in.
She has a shade house and fans to keep air circulating for her plants.
This is a Buttercrisp, and this would normally be like this big. In like 4 weeks, we could cut leaves off of it. Mind you, the leaves would be like this big, but they're not getting big because it's too hot. So as you can see, the babies are not growing as fast, and the ones that are growing will put off leaves, but not quite as much. And they're just struggling. They're just, God bless them, they're just struggling.
Her advice is if you want to see your plants grow, use only morning sun.
So if you had mint, tomatoes, basil, things like that you're still trying to grow, if they're planted in only morning sun, they won't get that afternoon burn. Also, do not water your plants in the middle of the afternoon when they will just be scorched by the sun. Only morning and evening watering. Try not to water the leaves if you can, because you don't want fungus.
Next, it's time for her to conduct maintenance at our farm and then reseed.
The pumps, the drains, the pipes, they all get really, really well cleaned out while we're on this kind of forced break. And then we seed again for September, and it's great. It's the joy of rebirth.
All right, great advice. Well, it's the final day of an extremely hot July, as we can see. Wondering what the month of August will bring? Well, Greg is back with your weekly weather planner. Greg?
Yeah, thanks again, Natalia, and welcome back, everybody, for our final look at weather. Big upper level low that's spinning across our area, keeping us a little unsettled with some showers and thunderstorms. That upper level low is expected to continue to slide out towards the northeast. You notice just a counterclockwise spin there across the central Bahamas. A lot of moisture coming back on the backside of that across the western portions, and that is triggering some showers and some thunderstorms across the northwest Bahamas, Grand Bahama, Abaco, the Bimini area, as well as here in the capital and North Andros. We got some showers and some thunderstorms. We will continue to see more of that activity tonight through tomorrow as this low continues to exit the area. The tropics, we are watching two areas. National Hurricane Center giving a low to medium chance for the first one that's moving just to the northeast, should be moving just to the northwest of Bermuda. Upper level low just to the east of that will continue to share that system, so that's not going to be much of a problem. But the other system in the central Atlantic, the National Hurricane Center giving that a very high chance that could be our next tropical depression or tropical storm, and we will continue to watch that one. That will stay in the open Atlantic as it continues to move away from most landmass. Through the next couple of days, these are the two systems that we will continue to monitor. The rest of the tropics is remaining quiet at this time. Future forecast showing some isolated showers and thunderstorms across the area. That will continue through Tuesday. Most of the activity moving out into the open Atlantic as that upper level low slides out of the area. And then, of course, on Wednesday, a couple of isolated showers across the northwest Bahamas as some lingering moisture remains across the area. Boating forecast for the northwest and central Bahamas tonight to tomorrow. Southeast winds at 10 to 15 knots. Seas running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. Your high tide will be at 7:34 tonight. For the southeast Bahamas, caution flight for you guys down there. Winds coming down a bit. East to southeast winds at 15 knots, gusting at times. Seas running 3 to 5 feet over open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your extended forecast, we keep a couple isolated showers in the forecast through tomorrow as that low exits the area. But the remainder of the week remaining quiet. Temperatures will get into the low to mid 90s with triple digit indices. So make sure you prepare for outdoor activity. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe night, everybody.
All right, Greg, thanks so much. Still pretty hot. Remember to drink your water. And with that, we thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.